Welcome to my Bootstrap 5.2 crash course. Here we'll be learning how to use the Bootstrap to build amazing web pages. But instead of going through the documentation, we will be creating a web page with most of the classes that we need to get started with Bootstrap. Unlike other tutorials whereby you just go through the documentation, today we'll be building this amazing web page. So before we start, we'll be visiting the Bootstrap web page. This is the Bootstrap 5.2 web page. Please you make sure you're clicking on the latest version of the Bootstrap. Then you can still follow along with an older version. So we'll go straight to the download section. So after downloading this, if you're on Windows, you have to extract it, but if you're on Mac, you can click here and then it expands your files and open it here. I think I have like 3 copies here. So I would copy all of this item, this folder, then come to my desktop. I think I have a Bootstrap 5 crash course. So I would just delete whatever I'm having here. Then I'll paste these 2 items here. So now I have these 2 folders in our crash course. So let's continue. So I would open this in our VS Code. So I could just file. I'll look for my desktop. So I'll open folder. And I'll just pick whatever I'm having on my desktop. That's the crash course. So we can open it. So once this is open, what we need to do is we need to create our index.html. So I'll be creating my index.html here. We would be adding our HTML5 boilerplates. So I would rename this to shoe hub. Then I can link my Bootstrap here. So it will be CSS/. So please, let's take note. We have lots of this here, but this is the one we want, the bootstrap.mean.css or this bootstrap.css. But I'm using the mean. So it means I've successfully linked my Bootstrap. So the next thing is to add the JavaScript for this. So the same thing with the JavaScript, you have to be careful. You're looking for bootstrap.main.js. So having this means I've already added my Bootstrap to my project. So I can test that by creating a button. Then I'll give it a class of btn.btn minus primary. So let's just put the hello to test if this is actually working. So I can reveal this here. Then we open that on this. So you can see I have a button here, so it means that our Bootstrap has been linked successful. So you can try testing with the example I just showed you. So having this now, we can jump ahead and start creating the website. So we'll be starting with the Bootstrap Navigation Up Bar. So what I'll do here is I would create just the HTML version that's without any Bootstrap classes. So I would just add a container for this, because we said we have 2 types of container in Bootstrap. That's the fixed and the fluid. So if I should put the hello world here and then come back to this item here, this is what I get. You see my hello, it means I'm having spacing at the beginning here and also at the end. So because we can't see the ending, so I'll come back to my code. So let's say this, I'm making this a fluid. So I want a 100% width. So if we come back here and then refresh this, you see my hello is here. So these are the 2 types of container that we have in Bootstrap. So I will be using the fixed one, which is just the fluid. So inside the container, I want to create a logo, an anchor tag that holds my logo. So I'll give this a class of navbar brand. So we can put the name of our site here, which is the shoe hub. So after that, the next thing I need is a toggle button. Once we switch to mobile version, we need this particular button here. Let's switch to mobile version. We need this button here, so I'll be adding the button right here. So now we just come in here, button. So I would give this a class of navbar toggler. See, the name is pretty easy to remember. So I would just give this a type of button. So there are other things that we will be adding, but I'll skip that for now and jump to the next section. So please, on this button now, I don't want to use the default icon that comes with the Bootstrap nav icon. So I would be using the Bootstrap icon. So Bootstrap have some amazing icon that we can use. So I'll be using Bootstrap icon minus list. So we're going to see that this is the icon that will be seen there instead of the normal Bootstrap icon for the navigational bar. So the next thing after creating the button is to create a div that holds all my linking. So inside I'll create an unordered list. So this unordered list, each of them I'll be giving it a class of nav item for our items here. So inside each of this nav item, that's where we have our navigational link here. So I'll start with the home. So here I can give it a home. Then here I'm also going to give this a class of nav minus link here. So this would now tell the computer, okay, this user needs a link here. So I would duplicate this because we have like 5 other items. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll be showing you after duplicating this how we can quickly make some edits here. So I'll be using the Alt key. So once I click here, I can hold Alt and click here. So what happens is that I would edit this at once. So here I would just have about. So I can change this to about. Then I'll do the same thing. Make sure you're holding the Alt after clicking the first position. So I'll change this to collections. So I can change this because this is an ID, so I prefer them in lowercase. Click this, hold the Alt. So we can add handcrafted. So I change this, so lowercase h. So after that, I can put our testimonies here. So I'll click here and then also here. And I'll change it to testimonies here, so we can change this to lowercase. So right now what we'll be having here is just some bunch of aligned text. So let's go back to our shoe hub here. So let's refresh this. This is what we're having. So on a very good day, if you're watching a tutorial, they create the whole navigational bar, but I want to show you what each of these classes does to this navigational bar. So now we will be starting with the unordered list here. So here I would just give this a class of navbar minus nav. So this should handle the styling for us. So let's refresh and see what happens. You see it has styled this item, remove the default styling for us and everything inside. So the next thing we want to do here is I'll give this div here a class of collapse. Then I'm saying this is my nav bar collapse. So what we're saying is that for this particular item now, we are targeting them. But if I refresh this, you notice that this item are gone after adding the nav bar collapse. So I need to introduce another class at the top to bring these items, because here the nav bar collapse works for mobile. Once you're in mobile version of Bootstrap, we want to hide those items. So that brings me to the nav bar here. So I'll give this a class of nav bar. So here, after giving this a class of nav bar, I can save, and then after we have to rush and say what happens. You see, so it just adjusts this to the bottom here. And you notice I have a tiny cursor here. So what I want to do here, I want to bring those items. So I would call in the nav bar minus expand minus LG. So calling this would bring our items right on the page here. You see, we now have our item by adding that particular class. So most of the times we just write or copy that from the documentation without exactly knowing what those classes means. So BG minus white, that's the background I want for my nav bar. So we can come in here and then you're not going to see much changes. So what I want from the tutorial here, we want these items to be on this side of the screen. So right now I want to move these items. So I will be targeting our unordered list here. So I said I want a margin start of auto. That means push everything to the end. So if we refresh this, you see we have these are items right at the section here on the end side here. So I can decide to make one of this active. So we can make this active here. Active save. Then so after this, you see now this is active, the home. So I want us to use the Bootstrap icon here. So you can open icons.getbootstrap.com. So right in here, I would show you where we can get our CDN for our Bootstrap. So I think it's a lot of scrolling here. So I have the link to the CDN. I'll copy this. So we have, these are the icons that are available for Bootstrap. Like they added over 100 plus icon for this new Bootstrap 5.2. Okay, they have 140. So now I'll come in here and then I'll paste this item right here. So you need to be connected for you to get the effects that I have. So now if I toggle to mobile version here, you notice I have my icon right here. So and you notice after clicking on this, this is not working. So because we still have some linking to do. So right now on this our button, I'll be giving this some command. I'll say we need data minus bootstrap minus the toggle. What do we want to toggle when the user click on this? So I said I want to toggle the collapse class. So here I also want to pass in a target. So data minus BS minus target. So where am I targeting? So I have to specify where I'm actually targeting. So I would give this an ID. I'll give this an ID of nav. So coming in here, I have to provide the hashtag nav for this particular item. So let's save our file and go back here, refresh and see what happens here. You see our navigational bar, it's fully functional now. So that is it for the first section of the web page. So in the next section, we'll be creating the bigger screen. That's where we have the introductory part. So I would be creating a header. So in this header, I can give it some Bootstrap classes and styling. So I'll just give it a class, give it a padding of -5. Then in here, I can also center all my text here, text centered. So I would be introducing a class for the mobile version of this particular web page. You notice that once I'm here, my text, it's on the left hand side. But when I switch to mobile version, I have this text centered here. So I'm going to tell Bootstrap that for mobile version, we want to center our text. So for me to do that, I'll say text minus small device minus then center this for small device. So I'll be giving this an ID of home, save. Then inside our header, I would be creating the container. So I have the container here. So inside the container, let's look at this web page. We have 2 columns here. So I would create the 2 columns, but this time I'm not using the row. I'll be using the deflex here. I'll be using the deflex. So the display flex, you remember from CSS, just align our items for us. So after using the display flex, I can use div.column minus md minus 7 here. So after that, I would create this. So I just created a column of 7 row. So place here, it's supposed to be a d minus flex. So after that, what we'll do here is we'll be adding our h1. I would just use this like massive. Please let me copy that from here. So we have the massive sales discount. So I can just paste that here. So underneath that, we also have this item. So I'll copy that and then also paste that here in the paragraph. So if I save this, then let's open our page and see what happens. You see, we have these items right here. But I want us to do 1 or 2 designs to this particular item. Let's see how they work. So here, I'll be styling this by giving this a display. So here, I'll give this a class of display. Please, this is classes that were added in Bootstrap -2. It's just like H2, but then these are bigger than our regular H2. You see, we have the massive discount here. Then I want to style this item here, that's for the paragraph, and I also want to give a margin top for our container. As you can see, this looks a little bit close, so I want to just push it a little bit downward here on our container. So I'll just give this a margin top of -5. Save this, and then we want to just continue. Okay, I think we have the paragraph already, so I want to create the other section, which is the button. We have a button underneath the paragraph. We have a button here, button. So we can give this a class of btn minus warning. So this will give us a yellow button. So it will be get started. That will be our button, and this is what we'll be having here. That's the get started button. Mind you, we are having lots of spacing here. That's because this our nav bar. We want it when the user scroll on this. Let's use this example. It becomes fixed. So without having that extra spacing, if we give this a class of nav fixed, it's going to take up that spacing here. So on my nav, I'm giving it a class of fixed, and then at the top, fixed top. Save that. So the extra spacing, if we save this, you see our spacing is gone after putting that fixed top. It means our nav bar has been fixed to the top. So now let's still go back to our code here and add some classes to style our items here. So on this div flex, I'm creating another div again. So div for column. So after which I would be adding the image inside. So I would create an img. So I want to add my images here. So what I'll do is I would drag. I have the image folder, which you can download in the description. So now after adding the images, I want to link my image here. So the folder name, then we're using the intro shoe. So let's refresh and see what happens. So we get this image. So what I want to do here is I want to use a Bootstrap class. I'm using width of -75. So this were all introduced. So I'm giving this a width of 75%. Just fits in perfectly. So after that, what we need to do here is I want to also give this another class of rounded of -3. So we need to make this and give this some sharp edges. So if we refresh back again, you see we have rounded borders for this image. And if you notice our text here, it's supposed to be on the left hand side for the bigger screen. So let's see where we had issues. So for small screen, I would change this to start here. So if I refresh this, let's see, okay, that solves our problem. So our text is world aligned now. So what I want to do here is when I switch to mobile version, I don't want to maintain this particular image. I don't want the user to see this image. So what we need to do here on the image, or here, I think I would just give the whole column a display of none, then display for smaller screen, then I'm setting it to none. So I can set that to block, sorry, to block. So save that, and then let's refresh and see. Okay, you see now the image is not visible for mobile, but once you extend above the mobile screen, we have our image. We reduce to mobile screen, and then the image is gone. So the next thing we want to do here is we want to start the other section. So to resume the other section, let's view the prototype here. So we have, are you looking for shoes? So we want to create the search bar. So I'll jump in here. I'll create a new section. I'll give it a padding of -5. So inside I will be creating a container. So inside the container, that is where I'll be putting all my items here. So I'll use a H3 for this. So I'll paste this. I want my text to be centered. So I would, because I have multiple text centered, so I'll be giving the parent the text centered here. Then this item, if I refresh this for us to see, you see we have this. So I want to make this mute so that it doesn't look too visible. So I'll give it a Bootstrap class of text muted. So if we save this, so the next thing I want to create is the search bar. So for my search bar, I'll be wrapping it inside the div. So in the div, I'll create an input. So the placeholder will be search for shoe. So after that, we need a button here. So I'll give this a search. So I can quickly give this a class because we've seen how it works. We said the btn now takes out. So let's just save this, and then let's view the output here. You see I have this here. So the btn, if I should apply the btn first, what it does is that it takes away this default property you're seeing here. The default property is being handled by the first btn. So the next one I'll be adding, which is the btn minus warning. This gives it the color that we want, which is yellow. So we have this here. So I'll be introducing a class that will join these items together. So we call that the input group. So I'll call a class input group. So if we refresh this, let's see the difference. You see I have my items now stacked together. So they are now related with the input group. So what we want to do here is I also want to give this a class of form control. So this was our button for us here. You see I have this all styled up here. So I'll be adding a shadow to this shadow, and I'll be making it a little bit more bigger. So you see we have a shadow here. So on this my container, I think I want to give it a BG light. That's a different color. So after giving it a BG light on the section here, sorry, not the container, BG light, so it gives us a different background. You see we have a different background here compared to the first section. So I would want to increase the size of this item here. This is our item here. So I want to expand this because the N3 here is small. So I would give this a P of -3, padding of -3. So if we save that, refresh, you see we have this a little bit more bigger. So here on the PC version, because if we reduce this screen, you notice that, okay, this still looks good for mobile, but for the PC, it looks kind of small. So what I want to do here is on my button, I'll give it a padding on left and right axis. but this will only be for large screens, and I'm giving it maximum of 5. It's the maximum. So let's refresh. You notice this grows to this, but once you start to mobile, you see once it gets from medium, it comes back to its original size. But anything above the medium, we have this padding on the left and also on the right. So the next thing we want to do here is we want to give this a margin. Here we want to give some spacing. So I would be adding a margin top of 4 here. Then I'll copy the text that is available here. So we have other items here. So I'll copy this text here. So then I'll add the about us right here. So it's H3. Sorry, I'll put about us. Then I'll create a paragraph tag here, P. And mind you that initially I'll just break this so that it will be readable. Because I said we'll be having a lot of text centered. You remember we had to put the text centered on the container here. So automatically this our item takes in the text center. So you see they take in the text centered here. So let's give this a margin at the top of this about and also at the bottom. So I'll be introducing a class which will give us margin top and bottom, but we're applying this on the about us. So my, like the y-axis on your graph, will give you margin top and bottom, because on the x-axis in our graph we have the positive side, which is the top, and then the negative side, which is the bottom. So if we refresh this page, we have our margin top and bottom. Then the text alignment here, for bigger screens, I want to give it a margin to just come inside a little. So I would give this the class of padding left and right. For large screens, I'm using the maximum here. So you see I have this reduced in a way that, okay, it looks good now. Looks like something we're having here. So we'll be creating this other section, and then we'll be left with, I think, 3 sections to create. So I'll be jumping in right to this best-selling shoes. I'll copy this. So I would create a new section. I'll give it a padding of -5. Then we give it a class of BG white. So before I start, I'll create a container. So right before we do anything, I want to show you guys something. If you're having a design like this, because this is what we're supposed to create, I make sure I analyze the design before I start writing the code. So let's look at this. We have 2 items here. If you look at it, let's say we have this one column and this is another column. But if you look at this, we can say that these 2 items are in a group. Then this is item 1 and this is item 2. So for us to actually make this a one item, we can wrap them inside a single div. So let's just jump to the code. So we're going to create a parent container. So let's use a row to actually illustrate this. So I'll be creating a row. So inside I'll create a div with a column of size 3. So inside, that is where we want to do this creation. We have our image first, so we can place in our image. So that should be shoe 1. Can place in our image. I can give our alt here. Let's give it a shoe. So now if I refresh our actual page, you see we have our image here. So I will show you, maybe we might encounter a problem, then I'll show you the solution in case you encounter them in the nearby future. So let's say I'm creating a div. So in this div, I'll create one div inside that is going to wrap the price and also the name of this. You see this name of this and also the price. So I would copy the name, and then here I would create a paragraph that holds the name and another paragraph that holds the price. So now these are in one group. So I'll come in here and create a button. So I'll just give it a class of btn warning. So the cat icon, will be using a Bootstrap icon for that. So I would have a class of bi, which is our Bootstrap icon, cut, bi cut. So if I come here and then refresh, you see we have our cut here, but you notice that these items are not aligned. So we're going to use the display flex on the parent here. So I'll give this a class of d minus flex, and then you notice how the button would automatically grow. You see it automatically grows to this level. So what we want to do here is I want to clear this spacing here for these two items, this paragraph. So let's give each of this paragraph a class of margin of -0. So let me show you what happens after doing that. Okay, so you see now we removed a margin here, the spacing is gone. So I'll do that for this last one here. So I'll give this a class of m-0. So I refresh, you see we have this. So I can align this to center using the self align. So on this image, I'm giving it a align self. So I can just give it a center here so that it can align itself to the center of our page. So I'll save that, and then I think no much effect, just try to reduce the button here. So now we want to space them out. So I'll still go back to the parent, which is our flex, justify minus contents minus between. So what this is that it will share the space in between these two items. If I refresh this, you see I have a space here, but it's like it's not taking everything we have. So let's see. Good. So that's because of our image. So if I should introduce a class on our image, so let's toggle to mobile version and see. Okay, good. So now you see this is the problem now that I was talking about. So now we want this image to fit in perfectly here. So what I will do here is on this image, I'll be giving it a class of width -100. So I'm giving it a width of -100. So you notice how it automatically fixed this for us. So I want the price to be bold, so I don't have to create a class. Bootstraps allow us to add a font weight of -bold. This will make our text bold. So if we refresh, I think, yeah, we have this. So let me go back to the PC version. So you see everything is now well aligned. So what we need to do here is we need to give margin at the top for this item. So on this particular group, where it's my deflex, here margin top of -3, refresh, and then you get your margin at the top here. So after having this, I think this is well aligned. So what we want to do right now is, I think this is okay. This design is okay. So I can duplicate this to create for other images. Please, I'll be duplicating from the column to the column here. So you can use Alt Shift then the down key, 1, 2, 3. So now we have 5 items. So I could just rename this quickly. I'll name this to shoe 2. As if you're using here would be 3, and then here would be 4. So if we save this and then I refresh this, you see we have all our images here. So it's left for me to just change the name. I have Italian leather for the second item. So I'll just change for the second item. I have Italian leather. I just start that here. I have Brooks. I have, let's see, classic covers. So copy this. I can change this to classic covers. So here I can have this last one. So this can be Brooks. So I just need to change the price randomly. As I said, this is 200. You can set this is like 450, 450. Then this should be like, okay, let's say 800. So let's refresh this and see. Okay, we all have a page. Okay, please, I'm on the wrong page here. So let's refresh this and see the name. So we have this item here. So what we want to do now is, so now we are done with this section. So we want to face this other section here, the handcrafted. So I'll just grab this text here. So I'll go back to my code. So I'll create a div here dot, so let's make it a section dot p minus 5. So in this section I can create a div and then give it a class of container. So given that a class of container, I would create my role inside div dot row. So in the row we can have a column inside. So after that I'll create our h1 to introduce the handcrafted leather. So after that I think we need to get the text here and also then the button. So I would create a paragraph right inside this column P, and then I'll paste this to make it readable. I'll be breaking this down. I think this is readable. So then the next thing is to add a button of buy now. So I'll create a button dot btn minus warning. So here I will just use the text buy now. Save this. So if we refresh this, so let's look at this section of our app here. I think we have this. All we need to do is to just format this and then give it some little styling here, and then we're good to go. So this looks a little bit more lighter compared to what we have here. So I would just give this a class. So let me format this, Alt Shift F. So I'll give this a class, a Bootstrap class of font weight. I would just put light here, the font weight light. So if we save that, you see I have a light color. So I also want to mute it. So I would just say this is a text, mute it, and then I want to give it a margin top. Okay, I'll just use my, set that to -3 so that we have top and bottom set properly. So if I refresh this, I think we have this. So right on my button, I just want to perform this. I want to remove the sharp edges, the border. I want sharp edges. Then I also want the button to be big, so I'll be adding btn large. So if you refresh, you get this. So the rounded minus, this is supposed to be -0. We want to remove this border radius here. Refresh, I think I have that fixed. So the next thing is on my second column here, I would also be creating an div.column minus md -6. That's where we get our image. So I'll be putting in my image here. So images / so we can use image 5 for that. So here I'll be introducing a class which we want to set the width to 75%, and then we also want it to be rounded. Just give it a border radius of -3. So if we save this, you see we have this here, but I want to align this to center. So I'll come back to my row. I'll just put justify minus contents. I want it at the center. So if we refresh this, I think we have this right here. So let's scroll down and see. Okay, this looks actually good. So let's just quickly add some margin for this button on mobile. So let's see, if we're on mobile, we want to add, let's say, margin bottom for this, and we set it, so let's say 3. And then if we refresh this, I think this is very well. So I think we can continue. So but before we do that, I think I want to give this section a background color. So I would quickly jump in and give this section a BG light, just to bring out the beauty. So okay, BG light, yes. Refresh, I think we have the BG light here. Just makes everything beautiful and then looks almost close to whatever we're having here. So I'll be creating this other section here, but we need to understand the flow of the program here. So I'm having item 1, 2, and item 3. So that means we can put them in a deflex. So I would be creating, so for this particular section, I'll give it an ID of handcrafted. So I would create a div dot section here. So after that, what we want to do is, let's give this some padding. Sorry, that should be section dot p minus 5. So dot bg minus white. I want a white background for this, PG minus white. So after that, what we need to do is we need to have a container inside this container. Then inside our container, we have our h2 tag with the word testimonies. So, and this should be placed at the center of our screen. So we just give it a class of text center. Text centered. So we're setting this right at the center. So let's see what we're having here on our screen. So I have this, and then we have our text center here with the word testimonies. So I would create a row, div.row. So inside this row we have 3 different columns. So I would size them div.column minus md minus 4. So we'll create one. So inside this, I would have a card. That's a Bootstrap card, div.card. So inside the div.card, we can have our div.card body, card body. So give us all the alignments that we need, div.card body. So in the div.card body, that is where we want to place this item 1, 2, and 3. So the way I'm going to group them is in such a way that I'll start with the image here. So img, so I can just target let's say the first person. The order doesn't matter right now, we just need to get that working. So I'll give this a manual height of 53 px, and then a width height of 53 px, and then a width of 53 px. So this thing should be able to maintain our, let's say, image size for us. So let's see. Okay, we have our item here. So now I want to remove this line around this and then give this a shadow. So I'll be targeting the card here. I'll say this card has a shadow class, and then it has a border of -0. So if we refresh this, let's see if that picks automatically. So this is actually good. So on our image, I'll be introducing a Bootstrap class called the rounded minus cycle. So as long as your image it's squared, you should get this perfect cycle here. So what we want to do right now is I want to add the name of this person. So I'll be using a h6 tag, and then let's say Julian is the name. So because okay, I think on my items here, I think I need to group them in a deflex, because if we refresh this, then we have Julian right underneath here. So I'll grab these 2 items and put them in a deflex. So div.d minus flex here. So I can just paste them here, save, and then let's see how they look right now. Okay, good. This is actually good. So we want to push this item down here a little bit. But on a very good day, you just think of maybe a margin top, we push it down. But we are going to use a different thing here. So we're going to align self here. So here, I'll be saying align minus self. Yes, just put this to center. So put this item at the center. So let's see. Good. You see Julian has been pushed to the center. So after that, let me try adding the stars before we go about it, because the stars are like 5, so I'll be putting them in a deflex manner, d minus deflex here. So I'll put icon. So here I'll just give it a class of Bootstrap Icon minus star minus fill. So let's give it a text minus primary text, warning, so that we have yellow stars. So here, refresh this, let's see our star. Okay, we have 1 star here. So I also want to push this star down here to this same level with Julia, but before I do that, I think I want to reduce the font size of this. I'll give it font size of 0.4 rem. So I'm giving that a font size of 0.4 rem, so it should reduce our image here. So now I want to align this item to self. So for me to do that, I would come here and say align self, align self, and then I said, okay, you should be at the center also. So if I refresh this, that should give me my Julian here, so the star. So I can duplicate this for the other stars. So I think I have 5 stars here. If I refresh this, I have my 5 stars. So I need to push them to this end. So what I do here on the group, I will just say margin start, just set it to auto. Just put everything, cover all the space. Okay, I think this actually looks good. So we can duplicate this. So let's copy this before we duplicate. Copy this. So let's see, I'm on the right track. I still need this, but then I don't want it in a deflex, so I'll be going outside the deflex, then paste this item here. Let's wrap it in a paragraph and then paste it here, and then let's make it readable by breaking it. So if we save this, and I think we come here, then we are going to have our text, you see. So now what I need to do here is I just want to align these items so I can make them small in a small tag, and then paste this item here. So I can give this a class of text muted, save, and then if we refresh this, I have this here. So my next problem here is to just push this Julian away from this image a little. So on the Julian text, we give it a margin start of -3. So if we refresh, I think that solves our whole problem. So what I want to do here is I'll just grab one of these dates, copy this, and then I'll create another paragraph here, P. So paste this. I want that to be at the end, somewhere here. That's somewhere here. So I need to give this a class of text minus and these were some of the changes that was made in Bootstrap. Initially it would have been text right, but now it's text end. So let's give it a font weight of bold. Save this, and when we refresh this, we should have a bold font weight. So I could just easily duplicate this particular column for the other items, so that I can just change the image all down. So here I could just change the name here, so I can have the publish and say this is Jennifer. Here we can change the name to Shipman. So I could just say, okay, his name is Shipman here. Shipman. So if I should come back here, if we refresh this, okay, we have all our items well aligned. So we can give this a margin. So on my testimonies, I can give my testimonies a margin bottom of -3. So if we refresh this, let's see how it looks, if it's good enough. Okay, so let's just make it -4 here, so that the spacing just makes everything looks good. So I think I have enough spacing for this. So we're left with the last section, which is the footer. So on the footer section, we're not going to be doing much. So I'll be creating a footer, the PBG minus dark. So I'll give it a padding of -5 as usual. So create a div.container. So in this container, I want to add my text here as a paragraph of p the text minus center the text minus white. So I will put a copyright here, then I'll put an ampersand to under copy. So this will bring the copyright sign for us, 2022. So I will just give a shoe hub 2022, shoe hub 2022. So having this now, I think I could just do this. Let's see if we have our image, our footer, sorry, not the image. So we have this text here. So let's see, we are having text minus white here. So please, that's a mistake from me. It's supposed to be dot. So let's just wait for the text. Okay, good. We have our copyright sign here. So what I need to do is I need to add this arrow here. So it's a little bit tricky. So what I'll do here is on the first position here, on my item, this particular item here, I'll give it a position minus relative position of minus. This should be relative. Then I would create an anchor tag here, said we're going to the top of this page, so we can just give this a class that will hold position absolute. Position absolute. So on this, I want to target, this should be at the bottom 0, and then also at the end we want it at 0. So here I would be adding my icon right here. So I'll be using I. So I'll give this a class of bi minus arrow, then the direction minus arrow, so minus up. So, and I want this in square, so I'll put minus square here. So here I just want the text to be white, text minus white here, for this particular item. So I can save this. So let's say if we have the icon there. So let's see, where's my icon? Okay, yeah, here's my icon right here at the extreme here. So I want to push it a little bit so that it comes in here. So I'll be giving it a padding of minus 5, p minus 5. Let's see that it just gets to push it inside for us, because it's almost at the end. We're specifying 0, 0. So pushing it there, I have it here. So on this my item here, I need to make this in such a way that we don't have a space right here. So let's jump back to it and see our spelling of position. So here we have position absolute, and then we have the position relative. So I don't want to see the spacing in between this item here. So let me push this a little bit. Let me give the margin top of minus 5 first. Let's see if that solves the whole problem before I conclude and then decide to style it. Okay, so let's see, I'm still getting this space right here. So let me check my bottom here. Bottom is 0, and then the end here is 0. So right here, I think this is my problem here. I need to give this the padding. I'm removing it from there. I'll just give p minus 5, save it, and then if we refresh, I think it should solve our problem for us. So let's go down. I think good. So now we have this. I can come down here. So the IDs will be adding are the ones in charge of all of this. You see, once we highlight, okay, testimony, that means let's click here, go to testimonies. So let's link the testimony section. So here on the testimonies, we need to give it an ID of testimonies. Save that, refresh it, and make sure that the testimony section, okay, it's working properly. Handcrafted brings us to handcrafted collections, brings us to this collections. Then let's see, the about brings us to about. Let's see if we had text for the collection here. Okay, best selling shoes. So I think we need to add this since I skipped this. So look for the best selling shoes here. I'll just paste this here. So let's put that in the history tag, give it a class of text center, text minus center. So let's give it a best selling shoes here. So I can refresh our original page. So I can have the best selling shoes. So I would give this margin, let's say bottom of minus 3. So let's see the spacing. Okay, the spacing is good. So I think that's this one other item I want us to fix before we end this. So if we switch to mobile version, every other section is good except for this side here. So what I want to do here is I want to give each of that column a particular class. So I'm coming here, I'll give this a margin top, each column margin top of minus 3. So I'll go to the next column here, margin top of minus 3. I'll also do that for this, a margin top of minus 3. So let's see, okay, I think I have all the margins. Let's see if I'm having any margins here. So here, since I'm having a margin bottom here of -4, so I can change it to margin bottom of -1. So 3 plus 1 would make that 4 for me. So let's see, let's refresh that and see. Okay, good. We have that spacing. I think this looks good on the mobile version. So please, this is how you can just easily create any page you want with Bootstrap 5.2, and this can easily get you started if you're working on any project. So this brings us to the end of this tutorial.